Welcome back to Caps Hockey Review. Finally back with you again. Bit of a lengthy absence there, but with the NHL expansion draft just around the corner, protection lists finally released. It's a good time to touch on it. I'm going to look at the protected list for the Caps. Not too much going into it. A couple thoughts here and there, but I really want to get into who's exposed and who I think the Caps will lose. What could turn out to be kind of an ideal situation and what could be less than ideal at this point. So, Caps Hockey Review, let's go.
700 red lights. Stanley Cup champions.
And off we go. Caps Hockey Review underway, off and running. Finally. It's been a minute, but expansion draft right around the corner. We got plenty to discuss right here, right now. So I've been thinking about it, and I think the easiest way to kind of break this down, run through this protected list first. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. I want to get into who's exposed, what might be a blessing in disguise for the Caps to lose, what would really suck for them to lose, and make my predictions. Who are the top three most likely, I think, to get drafted to Seattle. So with that in mind, let's jump in. Protected. We've got top three centers: Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Eller. To be expected, and it's a good call. Centers are so important in this league. Their value is at a premium. Keeping them around is hugely important, even with Kuznetsov kind of tied up in trade rumors. Even Brian McClellan saying the likelihood of a Kuznetsov trade is quote unquote high. You don't want to lose him for nothing. Kuznetsov, being a center, having the offensive talent he possesses, certainly does command some value. You don't want to just give that away. Other forwards on this list: TJ Oshie, Anthony Mantha, Tom Wilson, Daniel Sprong. Pretty much expected. TJ Oshie has been one of the top goal scorers on the team since he arrived. Anthony Mantha, they're kind of hoping is going to take the step toward that kind of Oshie Ovechkin tier of goal scoring this year. Tom Wilson does a little bit of everything, heart and soul kind of guy. Need to keep him around. Daniel Sprong. They had a couple options they could have gone with this seventh forward here. Connor Sherry would have been an option. He certainly comes to mind, but I think Daniel Sprong possesses a little more of that pure goal scoring ability, that raw talent. So I do like this decision to protect Daniel Sprong. Showed some flashes last year, hoping he can be a little more consistent this year, maybe even launch himself into that Oshie Ovechkin territory along with Mantha. Looking toward defensemen, John Carlson, of course. He's your number one defenseman. He quarterbacks power play. He kills penalties. He's the man as far as Caps defense goes. He's not going anywhere. Dmitry Orlov. This kind of reaffirms the organization's position and their, I guess, level of trust in Orlov. It's drawn the ire of a lot of fans the last couple of years with some would call lazy play, uninspired play, whatever. I would say hands down he was the best player on the Capitals in that Boston series this last season. So I do like the decision to protect Orlov. Now, third defenseman. This was a bit of a surprise to me. Trevor Van Riemsdyk. We didn't see him much last year. We saw him here and there, a couple games with a few guys out with injuries, but he was impressive when he got in. So I don't disagree with this decision. It's not that I don't like the decision. I just am a bit surprised. My thought was they would protect either Brendan Dillon or Nick Jensen with this spot. But Van Riemsdyk looks for now at least to kind of figure into those long-term plans for the Caps. So let's hope this was a good decision. I think it is, but I guess we'll see. Ilya Samsonov. You get to protect one goalie, of course. Ilya Samsonov is the man, apparently, for the Caps. Okay, okay, I get it. I get it, and I'm not ready to give up on Samsonov yet. I know there are fans out there who question his loyalty, his commitment to the team, what have you, with all the off ice stuff, the injuries in outside activities, getting put on the COVID list twice this year. There's certainly some questions to be raised, and they need to be answered as well. But I think this is the organization kind of giving him that pat on the back and reassuring him, all right, big guy, you have our trust. We think you're our guy. Now it's time for Samsonov to reciprocate that and prove that he is the guy that the Caps think he is, that they hope he can be. So hopefully this was not a mistake. Now, moving forward, who's exposed? Well, I think the easiest way to do this would be to break it up. I think there's some guys that it would benefit the Caps as soon as this year, but certainly down the road to have taken in this draft. But I think there's guys also that fall into the category that if they lose one of them, it's going to hurt long term. So jumping into who could they lose and have it benefit them long term? Well, my criteria for this is older guys, kind of on that, if you want to say on the back nine of their career, if you will, who still carry a sizable cap hit. Justin Schultz first comes to mind. We got a real good look at Justin Schultz in 2016 and 2017 with the Penguins. He was very much one of probably the top. He was probably a top 10 defenseman in the NHL at the time. However, that's kind of fallen off. Not to say he hasn't been good, because his production is still decent. It's still solid, but still another year left on this deal. $4 million. I think freeing up a little cap space would certainly benefit this team. As it sits right now, just a smidge over $9 million in available cap space that will come down slightly once Michael Kempny rejoins the active roster. They still, of course, need to get Alex Ovechkin signed. Ilya Samsonov also has a new deal coming. So definitely need a little bit more cap space would not hurt, and getting $4 million off the books would certainly be helpful for this team. Now, going on that same train of thought, Brendan Dillon, older guy, getting not too old, but getting a little more along in years as NHLers go. Same thing as Schultz, really. I mean, decent production, solid, not as good as he used to be, but still pretty serviceable. Now, this is a little bit more intriguing option, I feel like, maybe for Seattle, because he has a little more term on the deal, just slightly less at $3.9 million, 3 years to go on that one. One of these two would be ideal. For the cap space now, if they take Dillon, it's a little bit more cap space down the road as well. But either one of these, of course, it's difficult to lose a player, but in losing a defenseman for the Caps, I think would hurt the least, because they have a couple guys in Hershey, in Alex Alexeyev, Martin Fehérváry, who look ready to make the jump to the NHL. So certainly a more palatable loss when you have guys that can potentially fill in now. And Trevor Van Riemsdyk, he was protected for a reason. I'm guessing the Caps are going with the thought that they're going to lose a defenseman, but we'll see. Now, to kind of jump into what would be less ideal to lose, what we don't want to lose, what's going to hurt to lose. First off, I guess I would say for guys that's going to hurt to lose, like I said, it's going to hurt this team down the road. And first up, Vitek Vanacek. This would hurt now, and it could really hurt down the road. Rookie Rookie of the month for the month of January. He played extremely well. Overall, solid this season. 36 starts, 21 wins, 10 losses, a couple no decisions in there. Overall, 908 save percentage, 269 goals against average with 2 shutouts. Probably could have had more shutouts if not for a garbage time goal by an opposing team. But just a very, very good rookie season for Vitek Vanacek. Now, the goalie question still is here. Samsonov, is he ready? Well, Vanacek has proven to be a serviceable second option. And I think with the right, refining in his skills, some, maybe polishing the gem a little bit that is Vitek Vanacek, he certainly has all the tools to be a consistent starter in this league, maybe elite. I don't know if I'd set his potential at elite at this point, but maybe eventually. So this would hurt. It would hurt right now because that goalie question, as unanswered as it is right now with Vanacek, it will be that much more unanswered without him. That's when you look at what the Caps have also kind of available to them as far as goalies in-house. Craig Anderson, whose contract is expired or will expire here next week. I don't think he's certainly not going to be a long-term solution there. Phoenix Copley is a possibility. He's getting a little bit older, but still definitely serviceable. Was Holtby's backup in 2019 and did pretty well. And Zach Fucale's in there, young guy. Doesn't seem ready for the NHL at this point, but I don't think he's a solution, at least for right now. Maybe down the road he could be. But moving off goalies, back to defensemen. Ultimately, I think when Seattle looks at the Caps, they are targeting defensemen first, goalies second, forward last. So back on defensemen, Nick Jensen. He's a right shot defenseman. NHL GMs love that. It's just it's weird, but it's sought after. And the Caps, losing a right shot D would definitely not be. It would be a blow. What makes it a bigger blow with Nick Jensen, as he's been kind of considered more of a depth guy throughout his NHL career, but coming off the best season of his career, both defensively and offensively. The other good thing here, the thing that I've discussed a lot, cap space is so important. Carries a pretty manageable cap hit. $2.5 million for 2 more years. Certainly losing him would free up $2.5 million, but it would be nice to keep Jensen around. It looks like he is starting to blossom, even if it is a little bit later in his career than one would have thought. But starting to blossom, looks good, looks promising. Really, really would hate to lose this guy. And finally, Connor Sherry. I guess before I jump into Sherry, I'm going to jump back to Jensen just for a minute. The reason why I think it would hurt a little less to lose Jensen than Vanacek would be the Caps have a couple options in-house, without going out and signing somebody, which they could do. But Alex Alexeyev, Martin Fehérváry both look ready to make that jump to the NHL. So one of those two could definitely slot into that spot for Jensen, possibly even be better than Jensen was last year. But who knows right now? It's all a big mystery. We're going to have a little more clarity by the end of the night Wednesday. But right now, it's all kind of a guessing game. Finally, Connor Sherry. The third of my top 3, the number 3 of my top 3 that I think it would really, really suck for the Caps to lose. Here's why. I don't think he'll get taken. I think the defensive prospects and players available and the Vitek Vanacek being available will certainly be a little bit more intriguing, a little more enticing to take than Connor Sherry. Now, Connor Sherry broke into the league with the Penguins in 2016 and 17, had the most productive years of his career, but this last year was his best production since 2017. Still 2 years left at $1.5 million. For a solid third, possibly second line winger, that's good value. 1.5 million for a guy like that who can chip in offensively, he's responsible in his own end. That's good value. That's the kind of thing we like to see over here. And hopefully they can hang on to this guy. I would not, and I don't think the Caps will go jumping into any of these trade scenarios, because the rumor is that what Seattle is asking for, you don't want us to take the guy you want to keep. Oh, well, give us this, this, and this. Well, I'm hearing the asking price is just outrageous. So I don't think the Caps will fall into that. I would certainly rather see them lose Sherry than fall into giving up a lot of the future just to keep Sherry around. I would not like to see the Caps lose him, but I've talked about the future on here before. It is important to keep it in mind. Even right now, it's difficult with this expansion draft. Losing a player for nothing, it's tough, but hopefully people won't go down that rabbit hole. A lot of them did with Vegas. The Caps did not, but plenty of other teams did. And it doesn't seem like it's happening that way this time, which may hurt Seattle compared to what it did for Vegas, but who knows? Anyway, back on the Caps. I'm sorry, I got a little offline there, but looking at what the Caps have and what they could lose, it's going to be tough. The best case, like I said, losing Dylan or Schultz would be best case, but still, that's a hole you have to fill. And the devil's advocate to losing Schultz or Dylan, are either of those young guys ready to step into one of the, a top 4 role that one of these guys currently occupies? Now, certainly if, let's say they lose Justin Schultz, I think Nick Jensen is ready to slot in for Schultz, and then one of the young guys can slot in for Jensen. There's options defensively, goaltending wise. I wouldn't say fall into one of those trade traps to keep Vanacek, but losing Vanacek really, really kind of puts a dark cloud over that goaltending situation. And the reason why is because we don't know what Samsonov is yet. We think he's elite. We hope he's elite. We hope he's going to be the next Ole Kolzig, the next prime Braden Holtby, whatever you want to say, but we just don't know yet. And to not have a security blanket to go along with him just makes it difficult. So this, like I've said, these are my thoughts. Seattle could go completely off the board. Who knows? What will be interesting to see is what the Caps do after this draft. Of course, we've discussed, I guess I'll address the elephant in the room here. Alex Ovechkin is not on the protected list. Everybody knows this. The reason why is because his contract expires next week. So for Seattle to draft him, it could very well be a wasted draft pick if they did decide to take him. The going thought and what I'm hoping is going on is they have an agreement in place. They're just waiting to put pen to paper until after the expansion draft. It frees up a protection spot for the Caps. So there's a lot of unanswered questions here right now, and some of them will be answered on Wednesday. We've got, of course, expansion draft Wednesday, entry draft coming up this weekend, and then free agency opens on the 28th, which is a week from the expansion draft. So a lot of questions right now. Who are they going to lose in the expansion draft? We're going to find that out here within the next 48 hours. Free agency, that's going to be interesting. They don't have a lot of cap space to work with. I wouldn't expect to see any big signings there. But entry draft. That is where I think we could see a trade for Evgeny Kuznetsov get done. I think GM BM has a lot on his plate right now with expansion draft, entry draft, free agency, all coming up in the next week and a half. Finally, the answer to the big question's coming. Wednesday night, we finally, after all this time, wondering, waiting, thinking, asking, who are the Capitals going to lose to the Kraken? We're finally going to find out on Wednesday night. For my money, my top 3 candidates to go to the Seattle Kraken would be Connor Sherry, Nick Jensen, Vitek Vanacek. I think Vitek Vanacek at this moment is the most likely to go to the Kraken. Now, we could be surprised. When it was Vegas' turn to do this, we all thought Philip Grubauer was going to get taken, and the Golden Knights took everybody by surprise and drafted Nate Schmidt. So, of course, no prediction can be proven accurate until we know for sure who they take. But for my money, for my guessing, my studying into what the Caps are and what each guy has to offer, I think those 3 guys have the most to offer to a young, not necessarily even a young Seattle team, but a Seattle team that's looking to grow and build. Every one of those guys could be an extremely valuable asset. Going off the board, somebody like Brendan Dillon or Justin Schultz could also be very valuable assets. So who knows? But for me, number 3, Sherry. Number 2, Jensen. Number 1, most likely, Vitek Vanacek. We're going to find out Wednesday. Busy weeks coming ahead. We've got entry draft coming up over the weekend. A week from Wednesday, the 28th, free agency opens for the NHL. I will be with you through all of it. I will have post-expansion draft reaction, post-entry draft reaction, free agency predictions, and free agency reactions coming up. So I hope you will join me. Until then, go Caps.